Today we have a crazy malicious compliance story involving $7,000 in rotten shrimp. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, you need to tie your hair up. So, during the 1970s, my dad worked for the Royal Mail, British Postal Service, as a postman. Like many men at the time, he had long hair, just below his shoulders. His managers had an issue with this and told him he needed to sort his hair out and tie it up if he wasn't going to cut it. Now, my dad is a butt, and it came in handy here. He went home that day and told my mom, and she agreed to get up early to tie his hair for him before work. The next day, he went into work with the most delightful pigtails, tied up with some lovely pink ribbons. My dad greeted his manager and said he tied his hair up as requested, and then went off to do his round. He wore his pigtails for a week until coming back with his hair down after a weekend off and never got crap for it again. I mean, considering it was the 1970s, I'm surprised OP didn't say that their dad came home with a litany of new complaints. You know, a lot more judgmental ones than just, you have long hair and we don't like that. I myself always wondered why it even really mattered that much unless it's like a cooking position where you need a hairnet, or the more obvious one where the hair is clearly filthy. Piloted by Ghosts commented on the post saying, "When I was at school, the rule was that boys' hair couldn't touch their collar. So one lad who was told off about his massive jufro had the back and sides of his head shaved, leaving this absurd curly platform on the top of his head. I overheard two teachers angrily discussing how ridiculous it looked, but it was within the rules, so nothing they could do about it. This was in 1994, and none of us could have predicted that in 30 years' time that would be an actual haircut that teenage boys got because they thought it would be cool." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of malicious compliance, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? Our next story is, Don't Touch My Garbage. Hey all, friendly neighborhood trash panda here, the giant kind, not the bandit kind. It'll make sense in a minute. Backstory, I work as a sanitation engineer with a primary focus on residential communities. I'm a garbage collector for houses. See, it makes sense now. Our collection is handled automatically. Our trucks have a hydraulic grabber that we control from inside the cab to grab carts and dump them into the truck. We generally do not need to get out of the truck. We're not manually lifting and tossing garbage. It's a pretty easy gig. What most people don't realize is the rules for garbage collection. There are a lot of rules placed on homeowners and residents. What materials are acceptable, size limitations, if your garbage bin lid isn't fully closed, and a big one is bin placement. All bins need to be 1 meter away from basically anything else. Parked vehicles, other bins. This is to ensure the ease of using the hydraulics to grab the bins and also to prevent possible damage like scraping someone's car or busting a headlight or something. Generally, this isn't an issue in that with a bit of practice, you get good at grabbing bins even if they're parked right beside each other, or we'll just hop out of our truck, move the bin a little so it's easy to grab and then move it back. Reasoning for this is one, we're not jerks and it's just the nice neighborly thing to do since myself and most of my colleagues live in the same community we work. And two, it's actually a lot of paperwork for us to fill out for violations. So it's significantly easier to just take the 30 seconds to move the bin than the 5 minutes to do all the paperwork to issue a violation ticket. Story, we service a community that does both garbage and recycle on the same day. 2 bins, 2 trucks, 2 drivers. Most residents will put both bins side by side touching each other, a violation. So what we do is whichever truck gets to the location first will grab their bin, dump it, and then move it maybe a foot or two away from the other driver's bin so the second driver has an easier time grabbing it. It saves time for us and makes things run smoother, and we don't get complaints from people until we do. A resident complained that we were moving her bins, and word traveled to the higher-ups. Myself and my colleague got disciplined, instructed to place bins back exactly where we got them from, and then were monitored via our dash cam for a few weeks to ensure compliance. And our supervisor would take a trip out to the specific resident who complained after our shift to ensure the bins were not moved. Not appreciating being disciplined so severely because some fat cow had to take 2 extra steps to get one of her bins, we complied to the letter with her request. Unfortunately for her, she had a habit of placing her bins side by side, which is a spacing violation. So for 2 months, every week we would get to her residence, bins are side by side, so we can't grab them due to not enough space, fill out paperwork for a violation, and place the violation ticket on her bins and not dump her bins. She finally got the hint after about 2 months and started spacing her bins 3 feet apart and never complained about us moving her bins again. She also had to pay several small fees for extra pickup, since by the time she figured it out, she had several bins full of garbage, and regulations are 1 bin dump per resident. Anything extra is a not insignificant fee per extra bag. I mean, anybody listening to this right now thinking she didn't deserve every bit of what happened here? I don't know about anybody else out there, but I have trash collection and I try to make it as easy as possible because I want them to just pick up my trash and be happy that I'm not making things difficult for them. Like with my trash collection, I've noticed there's even a very specific spot they like the bins and put them in when they're done that makes it really easy for them to collect it. So from that point on, I just started putting them there. There's just no way I could imagine myself being upset that the trash guys moved the bin a few feet. I'm certainly not the most productive guy day to day, but even that is the most incredibly lazy thing I've ever heard. Discord the Lunatic commented on the post, "Nicely done. Being in retail, whenever someone in a service industry tries to do me a favor, I accept it because I know it comes from a place of greater knowledge than I have." Our next story is, whose cot is it anyway? I work for a non-emergency medical team. A driver at work ticked me off and, well, malicious compliance is a jerk. Some background info is needed. This person likes to drive a specific truck, number 26, and use a very specific cot. Labeled to identify it, well, their truck is currently in the shop. I worked Saturday. I got the schedule for today's runs, Monday. They were scheduled to be in truck number 29 due to their truck being in the shop. Okay, so I move his cot and equipment into the truck. Just a heads up, no other drivers require any special equipment. It's either manual, berry, or power cot as scheduled. So this idiot is already getting special attention by having his own assigned cot. The schedule for Tuesday rolls out, and I noticed that 29 was assigned to another driver and his truck is still not ready. So when he pulled in today, I went to him and informed him what truck I'm moving his cot to for tomorrow, ideally 34, as it's unassigned for tomorrow's runs. He is instantly throwing a rage fit. "Don't touch my crap, dang it. I'm not using another truck. Keep it in this truck." So I did just that. 29 still contains his cot and his equipment. 29 leaves an hour before he even shows up to work. It's assigned to be out on the road with a manual cot. His manual cot. Have fun. Can I just ask, does anybody out there have any kind of understanding as to why this guy would like a very specific cot? I'm assuming it's not one that he himself provided, it's just one that should be kind of first come, first serve, right? This is a non-emergency medical team. Why does this guy just get to claim a specific truck and a specific cot? How about just do your specific job with all of these specific necessary supplies that will be there, even if it's not the same exact one? Main Hazmat 1 commented, "Well, I'd just make sure the truck or the cot was out of service every chance I got. Plus ensure the berry cot followed him every day. His back will hate you." OP responded, "He actually likes the berry PT with the manual cot. The guy is all muscle and apparently smooth brain, also one of the messiest drivers we have, always having to clean up after him like he's some child, always forgetful and leaves O2 on all the time." Our next story is malicious compliance in history lecture. I saw a recent post about someone bullying a teacher, so after responding to that, I decided to type up a bit more of a detailed version for this entire sub. So to start out with, I have Tourette syndrome and ADHD. It makes learning a bit hard, but I was homeschooled by a professional teacher growing up, so I got the accommodations I needed, no issue. One thing I struggle with is writing by hand. I don't know why, but it literally hurts. My mom used to say that the pencil was my biggest enemy in learning. My hand will cramp up hardcore if I start writing, and I end up with larger and larger writing as I go. As far as I know, I'm holding the pencil correctly, so I really don't know why. I also have a tendency of concentrating so hard on the act of writing, I miss literally everything that wasn't on the projector. In fact, I might miss entire slides as well because of my slow, painful writing. So, because of these reasons, taking notes is a bit of a challenge. That's what accommodations are for though, right? So, my learning accommodations for college were time and a half private testing. They actually always give me double time, God bless them, the ability to record lectures, and a note taker. So in college, I never had any issues. I was able to concentrate on the lesson because I'm more of a visual learner, but I also got notes to study. It was great. Until I hit American history. This teacher was the smug God's gift to teaching type of guy. To be fair, he was born for it. He had the exact same name as a certain Confederate general, and he was an amazing lecturer. He assigned me his TA as a note taker and would take the notes and copy them for me after class. After a couple of weeks though, he noticed I wasn't attempting to take notes. He got upset. He claimed that the only possible way to learn was to take down notes, and if I didn't, he would refuse me any future notes. I was gobsmacked. I tried to explain that my learning style was different and that I needed to listen to him and pay attention to the board because otherwise I could miss a slide or things that weren't on the board. I was an A student on the dean's list every semester, so that should have been enough, but nope, it wasn't. So I told him I would make a compromise. I never needed to record any other classes, but I would bring in a tape recorder. He was happy with that and continued to give me the notes. This is where the malicious compliance starts. I did bring in that tape recorder, but I never once listened to it. I would let it run and the tape would fill up in about 3/4 of a class, and I wouldn't turn it over. The following week, I would turn the micro cassette over and record 3/4 of the next lecture. Then I'd take the tape, flip it over, and record over week 1's partial lecture. It was enough to get him off my back. I really should have reported him. Refusing to give me notes could have gotten him in serious trouble due to violating my ADA rights, but I was a stupid kid. I told my disabilities counselor but never escalated it because I came up with my simple malicious compliance. I ended up overall enjoying the class. Like I said, he was a great lecturer, just a crappy person for being ableist. Honestly, I'm really frustrated for OP here, but at least they managed to figure something out that worked for them in the end. I remember back in high school in 9th grade, I had a science teacher who said, "You will take notes in their class." Unless we're talking some very complex stuff, I've been a person that never really needed to take too many notes. I remember her flipping out on me for not having a pen and paper out the very minute she started talking a lecture. And this is Earth space science, so she's probably talking about the magnetosphere or igneous rocks or something. Harry Horrocks commented, "It also hurts for me to write for more than a certain amount of time. With me, it's because I'm hypermobile, so I get joint pain in my wrist and fingers after a while. I had to basically strap some of my fingers with a homemade tiny wrist strap during later exams so that I could physically write for long enough to complete my exams. But that was a stopgap measure at best, and my hands still hurt afterwards. In the end, I got permission to use a computer for my exams instead in uni, and that helped a lot." Our next story is ghosting and loving it. Recently, my company introduced a new process for supplying customers with expensive consumables. Previously, this process involved a lot of direct communication, numerous emails, and face-to-face meetings with customers to understand their needs. However, while I was on PTO, everything changed. Without any notice or consultation, a completely new system was implemented. My team, which used to handle about 65% of the previous process, had no involvement whatsoever in designing or approving this new method. Now, instead of collaborating directly with customers and colleagues, I've been given a standardized form divided into 4 sections. One for me, one for sales, one for logistics, and one for territory assistants and managers. My section of the form is minimal. All I do is indicate how many boxes to supply. Critical details such as who the customer is, where the order is going, pricing adjustments and preferential rates, information I used to manage, are no longer included. To make things worse, customer details on the forms are often incorrect. I used to fix those errors in the system, but I no longer have permission to do so. That's now handled by the head office. Even though I know my customer base well and try to provide accurate updates, my emails now bounce back. When I raised these issues, I was simply told to follow the form and not deviate. So I did. I completed my section, sent it to the designated address, and moved on. Nothing happened until months later when a customer called to say they were running critically low on consumables. I escalated the issue to my manager, but by that point, I'd already submitted 24 forms without any feedback or visible results. Recently, while I've been off recovering from surgery, I received an email asking for the same data I used to provide under the old system. I've chosen not to respond. That information is scattered across old emails and records, and it's no longer my responsibility. Ironically, the new process that was supposed to reduce costs and simplify operations has left 3 department heads confused and unable to proceed. They don't know the customer names, product details, we have 197 different products, or order history, only the number of boxes. The system they rely on can't function without accurate data input, and since I'm now strictly following the form as instructed, that data isn't being entered anymore. In short, the new process has stripped away the practical knowledge and collaboration that once made the system work. It's inefficient, confusing, and ultimately counterproductive. I feel like this is almost akin to trying to teach a kid a year's worth of curriculum through worksheets. You just hand it to them, say, hey, fill that out. When you're done with that, come back to me. I got another fresh stack waiting for you. By the time you're done, you'll definitely know geometry. Stubborn Kindness commented, "This is legitimately one of the stupidest management decisions I've ever seen on the sub. Most decisions have a way to be reversed, whether costly or not, in the short term. This absolutely doesn't. It's basically, don't do your job, plug one set of figures in with a very little context, do nothing else. Don't bring anything to our attention, don't fix any queries, issues, or mistakes, just do this one thing." Our next story is, Spotify support told me to read their refund policy, so I did, and forced them to give me a refund. So, my Spotify premium renewed today because I forgot to cancel. I immediately checked their refund policy online and confirmed I was eligible, so I canceled the plan, literally within minutes, and hopped on support chat to ask for the refund. Seemed simple, right? Wrong. The agent, Christina, gave me the classic runaround. She said the 14-day refund period only applies to your initial sign-up. And since I'd been a member for months, I was out of luck. She even sent me a link to the policy to prove her point, telling me to read it. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. I did exactly what she said. I read the policy, and then I went deeper and found their full, legally binding terms of use. And what did I find? In Section 3 under Withdrawal Right, it clearly states you have 14 days after your purchase to withdraw for any reason. A monthly renewal is a new purchase. My own research before the chat was correct. I went back to Christina and quoted the terms of use directly. She put me on hold to check backstage, then came back with the same denial. Her team was doubling down on the incorrect script, so I played my final card. I sent this message. Since this dispute is specifically about the legal interpretation of the withdrawal right in your terms of use, could you please provide the contact information for Spotify's legal department or the appropriate office for handling formal contractual disputes? The change was instant. Suddenly, she had to see what she could do. 5 minutes later, I've managed to ask some support with our backstage team, and we can go ahead and process a refund for you. They folded like a cheap suit. Their business model counts on you giving up. Don't. You are entitled to your money back. I'm really glad that it worked out for OP here, but real talk, this exact thing is exactly why whenever I sign up for some kind of free trial, I set like 12 alarms on 3 different platforms to go off a day or 2 early, just to make sure I get my butt up and cancel that trial. Either that or I use like a virtual card service like privacy.com where you can set a spending limit so there's no way they can actually even charge the card. Apart ad 6518 commented, "They folded like a cheap suit. They never expect people to read the terms and conditions, let alone understand and apply them. Kudos for calling them out and getting your refund." OP responded commenting, "They're trained to follow a script. The trick is to give them a problem the script doesn't cover. Asking for the legal team instantly turns a customer service issue into a risk management issue." Her manager did the math and realized the refund was the cheapest option. It works every time. Our next story is, I should cancel on my end? No problem. I booked accommodation 2 months in advance for St. Patrick's weekend in Dublin. It was a fairly ancient B&B, but for €115, it was a place to sleep and the cheapest option for the busiest weekend of the year in Dublin. It was a 1 double bed for me and a buddy to share. It was pay on arrival. 3 weeks before the stay, the accommodation manager messaged me on the app I booked the stay on, telling me there's a problem. I can no longer stay and to cancel on my side immediately. No apology, let alone help offered by them. This was followed by multiple phone calls daily, along with text messages in a harassing nature saying I need to cancel now so I can get my money back. Once again, it was pay on arrival. I didn't answer the calls or messages telling me to cancel. Something felt off, so I checked the listing for the night I was supposed to stay, and it just so happens the accommodation had been listed again for double the price. Likely, the manager realized St. Patrick's weekend was a cash grab. Maybe not immediately, but at the property manager's request, I simply rang Booking.com and told them I'd like to cancel my booking. The customer service rep asked why I was canceling, and I explained in detail all the above to her, and things took an unexpected turn for the property manager. Ultimately, the rep agreed the property was acting in an unfair manner, and the solution was that Booking.com would find me accommodation within 1 kilometer. Originally, they tried to get me to stay way outside of the city, but I wasn't having it of where I intended to stay. The original property would then be liable to cover any difference in cost. Here's the good part. Finding accommodation 3 weeks before St. Patrick's Day in Dublin is about as difficult as trying to light a fire with flint and steel in the rain. Near impossible. Everything within a 1 kilometer range was booked out except for a well-known 4-star hotel. The room alone cost €350 per night and had 2 double beds, much bigger room, and in a nicer location. The customer rep had to get it cleared by her team lead, so I just sat on hold doing chores for 25 minutes. Eventually, they came back and said it was all signed off on, and they would send me a special link. What a treat! I gladly accepted their compromise. This in turn meant the property owner that tried to force me to cancel on my end was now indebted €235, and we got a massive upgrade for the same price we originally had. I had to pay the €350 up front and had to keep receipts and show proof of payment to the booking partner after our stay, but got my refund of €235 the following week. Now, I had no idea that they had a policy like this, and it almost makes it curiously interesting to look for a place where you really want to visit. So you go about a year or 2 out during a very busy touristy time for that area, and then you find just the cheapest option, and you hope something like this will happen to you. Worst comes to worst, you have a relatively low-end place to visit and a good reason to go finally visit that place. Jaime0 commented, I booked a hotel for the 2024 eclipse for $100 a night and spent a year fearing they would do this to me. Our next story is, trying to performance manage me out of a job? I'm up for the challenge. Years ago, I worked for a supervisor who just didn't like me. No reason why, since I just came to work, did my job, and went home at the end of the day. But he decided that I was terrible at what I did and decided to performance manage me out of my job. Game on. He wrote me up for some vague bullcrap and asked me to sign it, but since it didn't show any hard facts and data, I asked for examples of this. Meeting ended with document unsigned since he didn't have an example for this. Tried it again with an example this time, and I asked how often this would be reviewed for feedback, how the feedback would be given, and how the improvement or non-improvement would be measured. He didn't have a solid answer, so again, no document signed, and the meeting ended. The next time we had HR in the meeting and had all his documentation and the answer to my questions from the prior meeting, he decided to be so smart on how feedback would be given daily via email. I signed the paper, and he gave a smug smile. Next day comes along, and shockingly, there was 0 feedback given, no email sent for the rest of the week. Get called into a meeting with boss and HR with a paper saying there was no improvement, and I was being put on warning for termination, and oops, I'm sorry, but can you show me the emails where feedback was given daily as outlined? There were none. Meeting ended. Next day, email sent with feedback. I responded with facts and data. No response. Day after, email sent with feedback. Again, responded noting that I hadn't gotten any follow-up for the day before, and responded to that day's email with facts and data. Third day, I again noted that I hadn't gotten any answers to the prior 2 days' questions, and added facts and data for this one. Then I CC'd the HR person and sent it back. Apparently, after much discussion, boss decided it was too hard to performance manage someone out of a job, and my work was suddenly just fine after all. Well, they certainly tried their best, but OP just put up a shield at every turn. It was like their only attack was shining one of those little red laser pointers, and OP just held up a mirror every time. QCon99 commented, it's likely not that he decided it was too hard, but that HR saw through his BS and smelled a potential wrongful termination lawsuit if he fired you and told him to quit. Our next story is, you're not paid to think. Cool. Enjoy $7,000 in rotten shrimp. Back in 2022, I worked night shift at a grocery store in Florida, stocking frozen. One night, I noticed the walk-in freezer was at 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Should be 0. I go tell my manager, real hard but always barking orders like he's running a boot camp. He cuts me off mid-sentence. You're not paid to think, just stock the dang shelves. Cool. Next morning, whole seafood section's trash. Shrimp, salmon, crab legs, all thawed and leaking. Store lost over $7,000. Corporate shows up ticked. Manager tries to throw me under the bus. Why didn't you report it? I just said, manager told me I'm not paid to think. They checked the cameras and audio, confirmed everything. Corporate backed me hard. Dave was reassigned, aka fired, a week later. Never saw him again. I got moved to dairy lead a month after. To be fair, if you're in a position like that and the manager does say, you're not paid to think, just stock the shelves, I feel like that would be the most perfect reminder that, yes, actually, you're right, I am not getting paid enough. Screw your shrimps. Debo's man commented, Dave wasn't paid to think either, and a good thing because he clearly wasn't capable. Our next story is, new neighbor didn't like my old fence, so I took it down. About 5 or 6 years ago, I built a fence in my backyard. I talked to my neighbors, and we decided on a good place to build the fence. We knew an approximate property line based on some survey pins, but were both too cheap to pay for a surveyor. We shook hands, and I built the fence. It was a great deal for my neighbors. I paid for everything, built the fence, and all they had to do was give me a thumbs up when it was done. Then, a year later, they sold their house. That meant I got a new neighbor. More specifically, I got Anne. Anne was from the big city. Anne was a realtor. Anne had flipped 8 houses in 12 years. Anne loved this new house and planned on staying for a long time. And Anne had a dog. Razzie was a German Shepherd mix that spent most of the day outside while Anne went to work. Razzie was aggressive towards children, animals, insects, and any plants that waved in the breeze. Razzie also, as Anne once told me, loved to chew on furniture. That's why Razzie stayed outside so much. About 6 months after Anne moved in, I saw a surveyor walking around in my neighborhood, and he was paying special attention to my backyard. The next day, Anne showed up at my front door with a stack of papers and asked me if I was going to pay her for the 9 inches that my fence was encroaching onto her property. I explained the handshake deal with the last neighbors, but she was having no part of it. She wanted the fence moved or she wanted money. No discussions. She had spoken to her lawyer friend and was perfectly happy to take me to court over the fence. She told me, I don't know how you guys do it out here in the sticks, but where I come from, we follow the rules. So I got rid of the fence. The next day, I unscrewed the horizontal rails from the brackets, stacked the fence panels up against my garage, and pulled up the fence posts with my work van. About a week later, Anne shows up at my front door again. She wants to know when I'm going to be building a new fence. Turns out, without my portion of the fence, she's not been able to let Razzie out unattended for fear that he'll run away, attack something, or get hit by a car. She also told me that she can't keep him in the house all day while she's at work anymore. Her furniture and carpet are all but ruined. I told her, well, Anne, I'm not going to be rebuilding the fence. I don't want any legal trouble, and the best way to stay out of trouble is to not build near your property. The look on her face was priceless. I thought she was going to cry. She probably did when she got back home. She tried to protest, saying that she really needed the fence back and she would even help pay for the new one. She told me how much she loved the style and aesthetic of the old one. It was just the location that she had a problem with. I stood firm. There would be no new fence. She never got a fence. She made half-hearted attempts to put up some bamboo fencing, but Razzie tore through that stuff like wet newspaper. Eventually, I sold my place and moved away. I took the old fence panels with me, and I still look at them every day when I let my dog out in the morning. She made it too easy here. Problem for me is I'm a dog lover, and it would be a weakness of mine to think about, is she going to risk letting that dog out and running off into the neighborhood or the street or whatever? I guess if I had to try to find alternative revenge, I'd look into whether or not I could build like an 8-foot privacy fence and just completely block any idea that she's next door or adjacent to my house in any way. A bunch of random letters commented on the post. I always try to approach neighbors in kindness because you have to live next to each other and see each other all the time. Absolutely idiotic to open with threatening legal action. Real Ultimate Papo replied, "Move your fence or I'll sue you." You got it, ma'am. Oh, I am so stupid. Genius should have used the money she was gonna sue you with and either built a new fence or trained her dog to not destroy everything in existence. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That's it, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.